There's probably going to be some bad language in this, so you might not want to let the kids watch. What's going on, you pack of bastards? Wino's back with another breakdown of the latest UFC card. And forgive me if there's a bunch of jump cuts in this one, but my landlord decided it was appropriate to start doing loud-ass renovations at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning. Yeah, it's 9 now, so fair enough, but it was 7 o'clock when he started. Luckily for me, I've been up since 3, watching the prelims, then the main card. I mean, I was up before that as well, working, so getting to sleep today is going to be tricky with all this work happening next door, but you're not here for that. Let's talk about the card. Gane has stepped up as a real contender in the heavyweight division. He already was. So was Volkov. This was basically a contender fight, although it's a bit messy there up at the top. You got Stipe, you got Jones. I know he said he's retired on, negotiation reasons, but, he's still lurking about there. But, yeah, Gane has cemented his case as another contender there. And apparently Lewis is already getting the next shot. So, yeah, murky waters at the top. But in terms of the performance, Gane just seemed to cut above Volkov the whole time. Personally, I had it 50-45, but you could call it 48-47. The first round was razor thin. Gane had more variety, but Volkov was landing more leg kicks. They were trading leg kicks a bit, but Volkov's were definitely harder. But Gane's punches and body kicks were also quite significant as well. So I think on the balance of everything and the immediate impact, Gane probably edged that one, but it was razor thin. And then the second round, I think, was closer than the commentators were saying. I thought it was pretty much like the first round, but just Gane doing a little better, getting a little more off, Volkov getting a little less off. So yes, that one went to Gane too. Round 3, Gane really started to feel himself, and it was basically just a step up of the first 2 rounds. But as I said, Gane coming forward more, Gane throwing more, Gane being more comfortable to throw, not as cagey, because those first 2 rounds were super cagey. The first 2 rounds felt a lot like the Rosenstreich fight. But yeah, he definitely started to open up in the third, and you started to see the tail of the fight come out, which was Gane just feeling himself more and more, and Volkov feeling the frustration more and more. In the 4th round, Gane started well, but Volkov had a real good combination. Every time Volkov let his hands go, he did pretty well in every round, but he just never seemed to have the confidence to let him go. And I think that was Gane's pressure and Gane's earning the respect with his power, with his speed, that stopped Volkov really being able to fire. And yes, Volkov's heaviest moments were in the 4th, but once again, I think Gane did enough to counteract those and land, some heavy stuff of his own and way outland Volkov. And then the 5th was more of what we'd seen throughout the whole fight. Volkov barely got anything off during the 5th. Earlier in the fight, Volkov was working Gane's right leg really well, and you did see it stiffen up throughout those early rounds, but as he kept moving on it, it seemed to have less and less effect on him, and by him I mean Gane. So at the end of the day, you could call it 48-47, you could call it 50-45, you could call it anything in between those, but you can't call it a Volkov win. And very, very impressive by Gane, especially with how good Volkov's been lately. So, I mean, him and Ngannou were former teammates, so the fight between them will have some interesting backstory to it. And Gane seems to say, like, look, give me that title shot. I don't want to stand back from it like Cormier and Velasquez used to do, because they said they wouldn't fight each other. And I think Gane versus Ngannou would be a very interesting style matchup, because Ngannou's just got that raw power, but he's also very technical himself, and as we saw in the last Stipe fight, he's really added a lot of fight IQ to his game and a lot of patience. The problem in his first Stipe fight was he rushed out there and gassed in the first round, whereas the second one, he just basically picked Stipe apart by holding back a bit and still using that savage power that he's got and knocked Stipe out in the second. So Gane has also shown a very meticulous, very fight-savvy way of fighting, especially in the last two fights. And he's, like, Ngannou's always shown he's got a bit of grappling, but Gane's shown more grappling than Ngannou. So I'd say Ngannou definitely has more raw power, more strength, and more size. Gane's probably got a little more nous, maybe more speed, but Ngannou's really fast too. So I'd still edge Ngannou if I was going to pick, but man, that'd be a great fight. Ngannou versus Lewis, I'm seeing Ngannou take it, to be honest. I love Lewis, but I mean, he's just got to land one of his big bomby knockers to hope he takes that one, because there's no other way, really, I can see Lewis winning that, except for just getting a big flash KO, you know? And then Stipe, we got to figure out where he fits in to this whole equation. But that's for a later date. Now, co-main event, we had Boza beating OSP. Sad to see OSP get knocked out. I've always got a bit of a soft spot in the heart for OSP. It looked like this one was going to have some controversy, but then when they showed a different angle on the replay, not much controversy there. Still maybe slightly, because it all hinged on what seemed like a cage grab when OSP was on top on the ground. Seemed like Boza grabbed the cage to leverage himself to be able to work the stand up, and then landed a knee once they stood. I was about to say standard. What a fucking gronky wino I am. Once they stood, landed a big punch, dropped OSP, landed a couple more punches. And if that was a cage grab, it all would have hinged on that, and that would have been very controversial. But since they went back and they looked at it, the first angle, it didn't super look like he grabbed the cage, but it was like you saw the back of the fist and you saw it close like that, so maybe he snuck some fingers through. And on the second angle, though, it was more of a side angle, and you saw the fist clenched before it actually hit the cage, and then it pushed into the cage, so it looked like he was posting off, but the hand was obscured by the top of the cage because it pushed the cage in a bit by the time he actually stood up, so who knows? He may have slipped a pinky in. He wouldn't be the first man in history to do it. But on what we could see, it seemed like it was fair. And the other slight point of controversy, I didn't hear anyone complaining about it, maybe they are, is when I watched live, I thought maybe it was an early stoppage, because it was like as soon as OSP went down, there was like one punch landed and the ref jumped in. But when they showed the replay of that, also from a slightly different angle, you could totally see why the ref would call it off. It did look like OSP was out on his all fours, because once it was waved off, he was alert straight away, and he was like, what happened? But yeah, when you saw that first punch land on the ground when OSP was on all fours, he looked like he just slumped over and was like head wobbling. And yeah, it basically looked like a fair stoppage to me, and since the cage grab looks like it wasn't a problem, fair win for Boza. First round was all Boza. OSP basically wasn't doing anything at all. He seemed like he couldn't get himself into the fight. And the second round started very similar, but then OSP got the takedown. So it's like, oh, this could be interesting. Then the whole sequence I just mentioned happened, and Boza walks out the winner. The next fight down the card, Barcelos versus Valiev. Now, this one, it was interesting. It was... Valiev definitely landed a lot more on volume, and I did give the fight to him, 29-28. But the way the commentators were talking, it was like he's definitely got this on the volume, whereas it seems like they don't understand that immediate impact trumps cumulative impact. So Barcelos was landing the harder shots. The first round in particular, I think, could really have an argument for it, because Valiv did outland Barcelos by quite a bit, but Barcelos was landing the bigger shots. At the end of the day, I agree that Valiv did enough volume to outweigh, because when you say immediate impact outweighs cumulative impact, it's not just the bigger shot wins. It's like you've got to do mental gymnastics and figure out how much volume do you need to outweigh a really powerful strike. And I do think Valiv did enough volume in that first round to take it. The second round was clearly Barcelos. And the thing is, he probably could have finished that fight. He knocked Valiv down towards the end of the round, and Felder was saying, like, oh, he could steal the round here. I wouldn't have even thought it was a stolen round, because up until that point, it was super close. Once again, Valiv had a bit more volume, but Barcelos was landing the stronger strikes, and this time it was even closer than the first round had been up to that point. If you stopped the round before the knockdown, it'd be a real hard argument as to who won the fight. But then with the knockdown, it was a clear win for Barcelos in the second. And the thing is, like, he looked like he almost had Valiv finished. So you could argue a 10-8 because of that close to finish. And the other thing is, the ref was almost coming in on it. If he'd just thrown a few little more hammer fists, a few more short elbows on top there, the ref probably would have stepped in and stopped that fight. But it seemed like he was gassed and he was happy to lay on top for the rest of the round. And then the fifth round was similar to the first, with Valiv landing much more volume and Barcelos getting some powering. But this one was even more Valiv than the first, because he landed some more heavy strikes of his own, a back fist in particular, some overhand rights, if I recall correctly. And Barcelos was doing even less than he did in the first. So it's like Valiv getting heavier strikes and Barcelos having even less volume. I mean, yes, the fifth goes to Valiv. So good performance by Valiv. Disappointing by Barcelos. And then we get to the next fight down the card, which I believe was Feely versus Pineda. And it was such a shame how this one ended. You always hate to see a fight end on an eye poke, but it was such a fun fight up until that point, you know? And yes, Feely was completely dominating it, but Pineda was doing enough to make you think, oh, maybe you can pull something off. There it is. Fucking bang, bang, bang. So yeah, as I was saying, Feely was doing enough to make you think he was dominating it, but Pineda was doing enough to make it interesting. The first round could have easily been a 10-8 for Feely, because he almost finished the fight in numerous occasions, but Pineda was chewing up that leg. So maybe the damage to the leg would have been enough to claw back a 10-9. Personally, I wouldn't say it was, because Feely almost finished the fight on at least 2, maybe 3 occasions in that round. Who knows? We'll never know. Never went to the judges' scorecards, because in the second round, Feely came out even stronger than he did in the first. He was really feeling the Feely flow, and then he got that vicious eye poke. And look, no one's to blame here. We see accidental eye pokes all the time, and Pineda did everything he could to try to get back in that fight. Tried to fool the ref into thinking he could see. Tried to tell him he had his eye open when you could see clearly his eye was still closed. He couldn't open his eye. But, you know, you never like to see a fight end that way, but that's the way it went. So, no contest. Maybe they'll redo that fight. Maybe they'll just move on, because Feely was basically dominating it so hard. But I'm looking forward to seeing both guys fight again, because both of them, whenever they're in a fight, it's a great fight. It's so much fun. So next down the card, we had Means versus Dalby. And yeah, this was a case like Means was just the better for almost the entire fight. He was out-striking and out-grappling Dalby. He was using his distance well to out-strike Dalby, landed a few funky high kicks, mainly using his punches at range. Didn't see a lot of the typical Tim Means elbows. We saw a couple of them, but he generally didn't want to get close enough to do that. When he did get close enough, he was taking Dalby down with clinch takedowns and pretty much controlling him for a bit on the ground. Like he was clearly the better grappler and somewhat the better striker. So yeah, the first 2 rounds means clearly the better grappler, somewhat the better striker. But in the third, Dalby came out like he knew he needed a finish, and he rocked Means, rocked him. It looked like, Means was on wobbly legs, a few more punches, could have knocked him out, but he made the worst decision possible. He clinched with him against the cage. Yes, he had double unders, but he'd been getting out-grappled the whole fight. And the other thing is, even if you weren't getting out-grappled the whole fight, whenever someone gets rocked, the natural thing they want to do in MMA, even in boxing, where clinching and grappling isn't really a thing, like, yeah, you can go in the clinch, but it gets broken straight up. But in MMA, where, like, you can, work in the clinch for a while, and you can work takedowns and whatnot in the clinch, you'll have time in the clinch. When you get rocked, the number one thing you do is go for the clinch. And Dalby gave it to Means. Yes, he had Means against the cage. Yes, he had double underhooks. But every second he spent in that position was giving Means more of his faculties back. And Means ended up turning it, and you could tell the rest of that round, all he wanted to do was clinch. He just wanted to survive the round because he knew he'd won the first 2. And when they did finally separate, Dalby looked a bit desperate in his punches, and Means was just trying to close the distance. So all Dalby's punches kind of went behind Means' head. And from then on, Means was able to close the distance, able to clinch. If Dalby had attacked him with strikes when he first rocked him, he might have been too mesmerized to be able to do it. But no, Dalby put himself in that position and spent about 2 minutes on that cage, letting Means clear his head. Very poor fight IQ, but a fun fight. So yes, bad fight IQ, but a fun fight. And I got to say, Means looked possibly the best I've seen him in his career, and he's been around for a long time. He was even in Strikeforce back in the day, pretty sure. So 3 wins in a row. He's always been at that cusp of top 15, one of those type of journeymen, and it seems like late in his career he's made that progression to get to the next level. So I'd love to see him fight a top 15er next. Maybe someone like, I don't know, maybe even Magny. Magny would be a fun fight for Means. Maybe they've fought before. I don't know. I didn't think before I started this about who I'd like to see him fight next, but that's the first name that sprung to mind. Maybe Li Jinglang. Once again, maybe they've fought before already. But yeah, they're the type of fights I'd like to see for Means next, and I think he deserves it. I think he deserves that crack at the top 15. You could say Sean Brady. I don't want to see that for Means, because right now I think Sean Brady's a fucking marauder. I think he's going to make his way into the top 10 and get towards the top. Once he hits the top, who knows how far he could go. But yeah, right now I want to see something, not saying that Brady is fucking miles above Means, but yeah, I want to see something that's a bit more style friendly for Means, and I think Brady will, yeah, kind of dominate him with his grappling. But yeah, there's a few fun fights for Means in that top 15. I would say Santiago Ponzinibbio as well. He's coming off a win. They've both been around for a while. That could be a lot of fun. Santiago's probably looking for a higher ranked guy right now. But yeah, something like that. Now we get to the first fight on the main card, which was just a grappling clinic from Renato Moycano. Will never fight well. Maybe if they rematch somewhere down the line, if Herbert gets some wins and whatnot. But we didn't see who was the better striker. On paper, you might think Herbert, but I'm telling you, Moycano's got some fucking striking, bro. And Moycano was just smart about it because he's like, maybe I'm better at striking. Who knows? But I know I'm better at grappling. Every fucking takedown he attempted, he got. I can't remember Herbert defending a single one. And when he was on top, he just floated from position to position so well. Floating is such a beautiful thing to see. Like when one guy's trying to get back up or trying to work back to a more advantageous position, and the other guy just floats and puts himself in the more advantageous position. It's a thing of beauty to watch. And throughout the first round, we saw that. And throughout the start of the second round, we saw that. And it was just, the more and more it happened, the more and more Herbert was wearing down, which is what you get from grappling. It's just sucking the life out of you. It's like a leech on the side of you. And I know I just said something about leeching lung. It's a different version of a leech. It just sucks the life out of you. And then Moycano landed some heavy ground and pound to start the finishing sequence in the second round. About halfway through, I think. Looked like he was going to finish it by TKO, but Herbert, to his credit, was doing enough to defend himself. And then Moycano dropped on this rear naked choke, one of 3 rear naked chokes on the card, and they all didn't happen similarly, but they all were very quick taps after they got put in. So, yeah, it was interesting. Three rear naked chokes and 3 quick taps once they were cinched, so you knew they were fucking in. And good to see Moycano get another win at lightweight. I'd like to see how far he can go in the division. Herbert, who knows? Is this 2 losses in a row now in his first 2 UFC fights? Maybe he's going to get sent back to the regionals back in England, I think that is. Maybe he'll get another shot. But either way, we can watch him for the future. I'm happy to see Moycano get this now, and I always love to see an elite grappling display, which is what we saw. Now, we're into the prelims, and as usual, I'll start at the bottom of the prelims. We'll sandwich it. We'll finish with the featured prelim. So, the first prelim of the night was Hadzovic versus Medeiros. Why did I even have to look that up? On paper, I thought that was crazy that they're putting Yancy Medeiros as the first fight on the card, because I know he's coming off a few losses and whatnot, but Jesus Christ, he's always a fucking barnstorming fun fight to watch, and he's a name. I mean, the fact that he's a barnstorming fun fight to watch is probably the reason they had him start off the card. And Damir Hadzovic hasn't been around for a long time, but he's had some decent fights and whatnot. He's had some hiccups. So, yeah, it was a good matchup. Much like with Means over Dalby, it was just Hadzovic was the level above Medeiros this whole time. The thing I found most notable about this fight was neither guy had any striking defense. They both kind of stood in front of each other. Yeah, maybe they moved a little bit, but neither one had head movement. And they both, got cracked in the head numerous times, basically any time their opponent threw. It's just Hadzovic threw more and threw harder. So he clearly won. Feel bad for Yancy because who knows, this could be Cutsville because this is 4 losses in a row. But he is so much fun and he is a bit of a name and he is Max Holloway's training partner. He may just get a little bit of leeway and get one more fight. Who knows? We're going to have to see. But absolute banger to start the card. Then the next fight was Rosa versus James. And this was the second one that had the mistake of going for the takedown. As I said before, with Dalby going for the clinch on Means. This one, look, James came out super strong early, was landing the heavier shots. But as the first round went on, Rosa started getting his timing in, his range in, and was using a lot more volume than James. So he was already kind of taken over. Then he got a takedown right at the end, and he did some good damage with the takedown. James did sweep it at the end and end up on top and cop an illegal... don't know if you could call it an up kick because it was kind of like a meh, because James was down on all fours and it was like eh. But it was while he was down. The ref probably should have stopped it and given James some time to recover and mentioned to the refs that was not a legal kick. But anyway, James did end up on top, but only for a few seconds, and he landed the heaviest stuff at the start of the round. The volume from Rosa definitely was making a question of it until the takedown, which completely sealed it for Rosa in my mind, and then the sweep and what James could do with his time on top. Plus, even though he ended up on top, Rosa had him in a bit of a triangle right at the end of that first round. So Rosa got the first round. Second round, Rosa stepped up that volume even more. It was like it started halfway through the first. James still got the odd powerful shot in, but Rosa was just completely out-voluming him. It's been hours now since I watched it. Probably got some takedown action too. Probably got some top time as well. And came into the third round, much like Nicholas Dalby, James knew he had to do something big to win it. And, well, unlike Nicholas Dalby and Tim Means, Rosa started the third, much like he did the first and second, winning on that volume. And, like, it looked much like the second round, at least, and halfway through the first. But James landed some big shots and really looked like it had Rosa rocked. He did it twice. He did it once, and Rosa kind of got out of it, and they kind of started fighting at distance again. Then he did it again, and it really looked like it might be Endsville for Rosa. And then he went for the takedown. James went for the takedown. And it's just like, man, what are you doing? But unlike Dalby, who just went for the double underhooks, James went for a double leg, got the takedown, it was against the cage, and then worked for a head and arm choke, which looked close for a little while. Yes, Rosa was answering the phone the whole time, but James was putting his all into that finish. So at least in this one, you could see he thought he had a path to victory, whereas the Dalby one, it's like, you just got out-grappled for fucking 2 rounds. Why are you even trying this? But in the end, Rosa got out of that head and arm. He got back up, landed some strikes of his own, threatened with a Das or an Anaconda or something like that. I know he'd threatened with an Anaconda earlier in the match that Felder was calling a Das. Hey, anyone who wants to know the difference between a Dyson and an Anaconda, it's all about the choking arm. In an Anaconda, the choking arm goes across the throat and the supporting arm goes under the armpit. In a Das, the choking arm goes under the armpit and the supporting arm comes up to support it. That's the difference between the two. With an Anaconda, once you got it locked, you want to roll onto your back to get the leverage of the pressure. With a Das, you want to pull them into you. You want to get your legs involved. You want to pull their legs into you, and you want to crush them like that. That's basically the difference, and they're both kind of a variation of arm in guillotine. But I digress. Rosa ended up riding out the rest of that round. James probably even got it on most. I think, no, Rosa got 30. Yeah, this was one that I was like, what? Because Rosa got 30-27 on one card. And I was like, James clearly got the third round. He rocked him. He almost had him finished. And he got that close head and arm choke. What are you seeing to get fucking Rosa that round? But every judge gave the first two. I think. Anyway, no, maybe it was a split. I don't even remember. Even a split, I don't agree with, but I definitely don't agree with fucking 30-27 Rosa. But yeah, 29-28 Rosa is how I had it. In the end, Rosa won, so that's all that matters. Now, what was the next one? Avila versus Stoliarenko. Avila is so much fun to watch. She is so much fun to watch. At the end, when she was given her post-fight interview, she said she got kicked out of her gym. I might have to look into that because I'm like, geez, how does someone get kicked out of their gym? Just made me assume it was because I think her partner is in the corner, either her husband or fiance or just partner. Maybe it had something to do with him because quite often when someone gets kicked out of a gym, it's for some type of that reason. But anyway, forget the gym dramas. Avila is so much fun to watch. She came out strong, as she always does. The start of that was just those girls fucking throwing haymakers at each other because Avila set the tone. And, yeah, she landed the harder shots. She landed more shots. Stoliarenko, whenever she had it going for her, it was when she initiated clinches and whatnot, even though she did land the odd shot on Avila herself. The second round, I don't know. It was kind of close. I was pretty tired because, like I said, I'd been working through the night and then came home to watch the fight starting at 3. So I was drowsing and then I had to slap myself around to wake myself up. And this is one of the moments I was drowsing. But the second round I thought could be questionable. Like, Avila did the more damage, it seemed, and I feel like I gave it to Avila, but Stoliarenko was doing a lot of control and a lot of grappling, and I think she even had some top time. Like I said, I can't remember it super well. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because third round, Avila came out super strong, like she does, smacked around Stoliarenko with some strikes, then somehow she got on top or got the back, whether it was a sweep. Like I said, I can't quite remember. But she got a rear naked choke. She got that arm under the neck. It's one of the 3 rear naked chokes. And just like the other one, pretty much as soon as it was cinched, you felt the tap. Well, you saw the tap. Avila felt the tap. And yeah, great performance for Avila. Let's see more of her. Pratnio versus Villanueva. Super fun fight. Villanueva came out, rocked Pratnio almost immediately with an uppercut in the first exchange of the first round. It was like, oh shit, Pratnio's up against it. And a lot of that round was Villanueva like coming forward with heavy pressure, plodding forward, using his solid boxing to try to fuck with Pratnio. But these Poles, man, 1, they've got power, 2, they got chins, because Pratnio took everything that Villanueva had and he was using more variety. He was throwing leg kicks. He was throwing some body kicks. He was throwing punches up top. He was throwing punches to the body. I think it went to like the strike count and it was like something I've never seen before. It was like, 32 strikes to the head for Villanueva. No body shots, no leg shots. And Pratnio had a nice even spread. It's like, fuck me, Villanueva is head hunting. But in the second round, we saw that diversity pay off, because as soon as it started, Pratnio landed, I believe it was a leg kick and then a left hook combination, both of which landed flush. And then he threw this kick, which Villanueva probably thought was going to be another leg kick, because most of Pratnio's body shots, I believe, had been punches up until that point. He might have thrown the odd body kick, but most of his kicks were leg kicks. And it's like the old Fulham, like you go low, you go low, you go high. This time he went low, 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 then went middle. And he landed a fucking liver kick from hell, bro. I love a liver kick. I love a body shot knockout. Like, I don't know, maybe it's something sadistic about me. I just love seeing the soul leave someone's body and they're just like, they're still fully conscious, but they cannot operate. We actually had that in the Pineda fight that I've already talked about with Feely, but Pineda somehow gritted his way through it. He's a tough little bastard, man. But yeah, Villanueva just completely crippled from this liver kick, and it was a thing of beauty. And Pratnio, after a rocky start to his UFC career, is on a bit of a roll now. Beautiful stuff. Then we had Wells versus Alves. Hey, man, I would have said Wells is the prospect of the card if it's not for the next fight. Because Wells, he made his debut on short notice against someone like Wally Alves, who's like, he's solid, man. Yeah, he's not top 15 and shit right now. He might have been at some point in the past, but he's been around for a long time, and he's caused a lot of damage to a lot of dudes, and he's always been dangerous. His choke out of Colby Covington being probably the most notable of everything he's done. But this Wells dude just came out throwing bombs. Like, he knocked Wally down almost immediately, but it looked to me like it was more of an off-balance thing rather than a concussive thing. But he got on top, and he was doing what was needed. As the round wore on, it felt like he was kind of wasting energy going, this is Wells, going after, big action things, throwing 100% into every strike, and Wally kind of figuring him out and being able to time him, get out of the way of what he was doing, counter back with his own stuff. Still, Wells won the round in my mind, but it was like, I was thinking after that first round, okay, Wally's got this guy figured out. He's going to start methodically taking over from here. But fucking no. Oh, Wells came out, landed one big shot with Wally like out of position, and it stunned him a bit. And then Wally threw another shot, and he had his back like half turned to Wells, and he just landed a fucking huge right hand and knocked him face down. And Wells was so excited to get on it, he kind of fell on top of him and bounced off the top of his head, both of them face down, came over the top and threw a few punches, and Wally was clearly out. So it was two out-of-position moments for Wally with two huge power capitalizations from Wells. And I was like, fuck, man, we got to keep an eye on this Wells guy. He looks a bit green. He looks a bit rough around the edges, but fuck, he will fuck you up if he gives you the chance. And maybe he's the prospect of the night until the next fight. Shavkat Rakhmonov. Oh my God, this guy. Everyone talks about Khamzat. Everyone talks about Khamzat being the fucking big destroyer of like the new things to see. But fucking Rakhmonov to come in and to beat Alex Oliveira and then Michel Prazeres in such a way, just to dominate them both. It's super, super impressive. And the way he dominated Prazeres in this fight, he didn't just beat him on the feet, he beat him in grappling and in wrestling. He beat him in wrestling on the feet, defending takedowns and then getting his own takedowns, and he beat him in the grappling on the ground, eventually finishing it with a rear naked choke, choking out Prazeres. Not only the first person to finish Prazeres, the first person to submit Prazeres, who is, above all, a fucking grappler, and a pretty top-tier grappler at that. So I'm so excited to see what Rakhmonov does next. I reckon you put him up against Khamzat, but then you're like, oh, maybe you're burning two super hot prospects. Let them build a bit and fight each other as they get close to the top. But Jesus Christ, everyone at fucking 170 better watch out for this dude, because I reckon he's already ready for 15-5. The top 5 is a different story. And I know I said Means is ready for top 15 earlier. I don't want to see those two fight each other. Just like I said, I didn't want to see Means versus Brady. You know what? There's a fight I want to see. Book it. Shavkat versus Brady. Shavkat versus Brady. That's the fight I want to see. If you're not going to do Shavkat versus Khamzat, that's the other fight I want to see. But like I said, let's build that a bit. Shavkat versus Brady. Shavkat versus Brady. And my God, I'm surprised we're not talking about this guy more, because he is so fucking exciting. I can't believe it. Then we have the featured prelim, Nzechukwu. It's hard to say his name. Nzechukwu Kennedy. I'll just call him Mr. Kennedy. Kennedy. But He took on Danilo Marquez. Marquez. I'll say Marquez. And fucking Marquez was like, let's just call, like, new nickname for Kennedy, the comeback kid. Kennedy, the comeback kid, Nzechukwu. Nzechukwu. It's hard to get the woo after the K. Sorry, I'll stop dwelling on his name. But comeback kid Kennedy. Kennedy, the comeback kid. After his fucking Carlos Alberg fight, and then this one. First round, he got taken down with the single leg immediately, had his back taken, he got up, but he was backpacked for the whole round. Basically defending a rear naked choke. It never looked super in, but clear round for Marquez. Second round, much the same. Marquez getting straight into the grapple, taking him down with a single leg almost immediately, getting his back, riding that back for pretty much the whole round. But towards the end of the round, they got up. Danilo looked a little tired, and Kennedy started throwing some punches, but Danilo had good enough striking defense that a lot of those punches seemed like they didn't land too flush. Some did, but with the dominance of the rest of the round, I think that round still went to Danilo. But with the words of his coaches ringing in his ears, Kennedy came out in the third knowing he had to finish it, and my God, did he come out strong. Once again, even more so than the St. Preux one, because I said on the replay of the St. Preux one, I kind of got the stoppage. This one I thought was a little early. I thought Danilo was still standing. He still looked completely lucid. He did have his hands up, and yeah, he wasn't answering yet, but like he was kind of trying to get his composure to find something to answer with. Plus, he was super gassed. But look, it's not the worst stoppage I've ever seen. I won't even complain about the stoppage. I'm just thinking it may have been a tad early, but not taking anything away from Kennedy. The comeback kid, dominated by Alberg early, comes back, knocks him out. Dominated by Marquez early, comes back and knocks him out. So, really a great card at the end of the day. Some great submissions, some comebacks. Not the most exciting main event, but a real contender emerging from it. Some prospects coming up to keep your eye on. Some veterans doing well. Some veterans falling off. It's stories all over the card. I had a great time watching it. Hope you had a great time listening to me fucking ramble on about it. And I'm the Wino. See you on Wednesday for the Ultimate Fighter fucking review. Cheers, cunts. You.